Welcome back to the YouTube channel. So following on from my last video that did all things safety squat bar, today we're going to be taking you through one of my favorite exercises to implement with the safety squat bar. And we're going to take you through some of the benefits and why you should potentially use this exercise. So it is the Hatfield split squat. For those of you that don't know what the Hatfield split squat is, it's basically doing a static lunge using the rack as support to help you up. Now this is going to help you balance so that we can really maintain on loading the muscles that we want to target in order to grow and get bigger. So the first main reason that I really love the Hatfield split squat is that it's easier to perform than say a normal static split squat. Obviously we're taking our hands, putting them on the rack. Did my voice just break? Now specifically for powerlifting's sake and people that are really focused on improving their strength in the squat, bench press and deadlift, typically those lifts are going to be first in their programs. These can be quite taxing after doing 4 or 5 sets of hard squatting, hard benching or hard deadlifting. And then when we want to get to our accessories, typically I like to program things that are a little bit easier to execute. Now machines are great, leg extensions, belt squats, but this is another single leg variation that's a little bit easier to execute. So we're going to get improved output by balancing on the rack. We're using our hands on the rack. You can also set up a bar on the rack and hold that as well to support you. It takes out the balancing act and then you can purely focus on getting as much output as you can in the forms of mechanical tension to grow the muscle as big as we want. So the second reason that I love to program the Hatfield split squat is that it helps us improve mechanical tension. And that sort of does follow on from output, which was the previous point, but I'm going to explain a little bit more why compared to sort of a normal split squat where we don't have the support of the rack, why the Hatfield is potentially better for improved mechanical tension, which is going to help us with strength and hypertrophy. So obviously with the Hatfield split squat, we're locking ourselves down and being able to just produce force straight up and down. When we're doing a normal split squat without the support, there is a large balancing factor that we need, and most people do struggle with this early on. They're wobbling all over the place and their ability to produce output or produce mechanical tension is quite greatly reduced. Now I do think as an athlete or a powerlifter or any individual that it is important to do split squats, a traditional split squat where you're not using the rack as a support, because we do want to be able to absorb and produce force on single legs as we are human beings. So I think there is great benefit to running both of these, your more traditional split squatting styles and then Hatfield split squatting style for really getting the most out of your split squat and producing the most amount of force as possible. The third point of why I like to program the Hatfield split squat, and if you've watched any of our content before, you've probably heard us talk about the stack position. So exhaling to bring the ribs, to compress the rib cage, bring the ribs over the pelvis and maintaining this position while we move. Now this position is something that you do want to practice, and you can practice it pretty much with most movements. The more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. Because we don't have to worry about balancing as much with the Hatfield split squat, we've got the rack to support us, we can really focus on maintaining that ribcage stacked position. Now, if you've seen any content before, I'm sure you've heard us talk about the fact that the stacked position helps with length-tension relationship. Now, this is the position that the actin and myosin filaments are in that's going to help them produce force. If they're too far away, they can't cling on to each other and produce force. If they're too close together, they're already sort of shut off and can't really produce force. So we want our muscles to sort of be at that optimal length where they're in the best position to cling on to each other and produce force. So by setting the stack position, this is going to help us improve that force production and that length tension relationship. So the Hatfield split squat is great because we take out the balancing act, we can hold onto the rack, exhale, set the stack position and really maintain that position and practice holding that position while going up and down in the split squat. The last point why I love programming the Hatfield split squat is that it's easy for a lot of individuals to implement. Now, most people during COVID, a lot of people set up home gyms. They obviously don't have access to big fancy machines that you see in most gyms like this leg extension. They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. They take up heaps of room. So if we can use a piece of equipment like a safety squat bar that is pretty cheap to buy, costs a few $100, and we can do all these different exercises with it and get the benefits of using machines, then why not? So the Hatfield split squat mimics that sort of external stability that we get from, say, a machine like a leg extension or a Smith machine where we do hack squats, and we can take that and do that at home or in a gym where we don't have fancy machines. So that's the final reason why I really love the Hatfield split squat, is we get the same benefits of a machine, external stability, locking us in, can really focus on mechanical tension and our output without all the dollars attached to buying expensive machines. And so finally, I like to wrap up all my videos with a practical example so you at home can go and implement this with your clients or in your own training program. And so really basic example of how I sort of implement this is if we've got day one, which is our main competition squat day, we're doing a 4x5, you follow on B1, your second exercise slot with a Hatfield split squat, a little bit more focused on hypertrophy of the quads and glutes. So this is how I would program it in. Obviously, you can use this any way you want. You can have this as your main lift if you're really in a hypertrophy focused program. If you're someone that doesn't squat, this can be a really good substitute for your main lift. If you're at home, chuck it in and you don't have access to fancy equipment. If you didn't watch our last video too, I highly recommend getting a safety squat bar. Awesome piece of equipment, especially if you've got a gym set up at home. But this is how I would chuck it in. Use that, try the Hatfield split squat, let us know in the comments below. And as always, happy lifting. Done.